welcome to this dialogue, colleagues, all of you. The transport sector program director and the colleagues is a key enabler of economic, social, and environmental activities globally. In South Africa in particular, the connectedness of communities is even more critical given the historical planning that perpetrated this connectedness. At the Tshwane University of Technology, this eminent need has been converted into an opportunity to establish a research, innovation, and commercialization environment to both derive socio-economic value as well as to generate knowledge through the establishment of the National Research Foundation, South African Research Chair in Future Manufacturing Technologies and Manufacturing Incubator. All of these are led by our program director of the day, who is our research shareholder, Professor Mbofu. As the leading university in engineering and information communication technologies, according to the Times Higher Education rankings, the Tshwane University of Technology has established the Institute for Future of Work particularly to create a hub where, among other areas of expertise the university has endowed with, it can contribute to the connectedness through the dedicated focus on the future of work. It is also proper for me to mention that we are the only university, not the only university of technology, the only university that has a faculty of ICT. Among the various futures of work, colleagues, that are being explored globally, one of the futures is that of producing our own modes of transport to solve the problem of connectedness, while at the same time creating economic activities for our citizens. The partnership with other players from the European Union cannot be taken for granted, and as such, this dialogue is arranged in close connection with the EU as a key player in the transport manufacturing sector in South Africa. This is not a strange context for the Tshwane University of Technology, as in the past the university has built a rough road car called a Beja, which has carved the future work opportunities for many people. More recently, in line with environmental concerns, the Tshwane University of Technology solar car recently traveled on solar power from Pretoria in South Africa to Sokondhum, that is in Namibia, a distance of over 2,000 kilometers, as a beacon of possibilities of future transport design, manufacturing, and future ways of travel. I thought you would clap hands when I mentioned that. Also, dear colleagues, the recently young entrepreneurs from the Tshwane University of Technology, while studying for the postgraduate qualifications, have supplied holding pictures to Gibela as an illustration of the entrepreneurial futures of our graduates. This is not surprising because one of our strategic pillars in the university is to produce future-ready graduates. And we're so determined and we are so much focused on that all the students that are being produced at Tshwane University of Technology, they are ready for the future. These colleagues are small but important strides that illustrate the energy being put in place to contribute to a competitive transport sector through research, innovation, and commercialization ideas. The conversations planned today, fellow colleagues, that will involve the Institute for Future of Work at Tshwane University of Technology, the European Union, the higher education in general, the various arms of government and representatives of industry under the theme Successful Future Work Skills and Education Partnerships in the Transport Manufacturing Sector, builds up momentum that has been brewing at our university for years and is now geared to harness the possibilities brought by the fourth industrial revolution. I am confident that this workshop, with the associated two other series, will assist this country of ours to create a social compact around the needed future of work partnerships to both resolve connectedness while addressing unemployment, inequality, and poverty in South Africa and the global South at large. The transport manufacturing sector conversations begin to build towards the vision of the Institute for Future of Work in small steps, rightfully so. As the African proverb goes, it takes a village to raise a child. The conversations today are the beginning of greater initiatives to follow in driving the future of work in the transport sector. Please be at liberty to reach out to us on how we can partner in this regard to address common interests. I thank you, Program Director. I thank you, colleagues. Ngiyaleboga, enkosi, ndiyabulela. Sithi ke singumzi waseTshwane University of Technology maze nethole. Indeed, amaqokazana ke angalala endleleni ngabe kunyembelekile. Sibulela kakhulu sibamba ngazo zozilimi. Dear colleagues, I have another engagement that I'm attending in Cape Town. I therefore ask to be excused. Thank you so much.
DVC, thank you so much for cementing your authority around the conversations that are going to be taking place today. Your leadership in this regard is held very highly, both by the colleagues online and also the colleagues here present. And we want to thank you and wish you the very best of engagements there in Cape Town. When transport topics come up, do remind them that we're actually busy with this at TUT, even as I speak with you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, colleagues.
You are excused, ma'am. So at this juncture, colleagues, if you look at our program, we are going to be going into, maybe I must, can I exit? Okay. I see that the video is playing now. Can you hear me online? If you can please confirm. Colleagues online, can you hear me? I don't want to proceed and leave you behind. That would be very unfair of me.
We are with you, Chai.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Yes, now I can speak comfortably and relaxedly, because I was concerned that I'll be speaking here and I'll be speaking to the people who are present here physically, and the people who are online are not seeing what is going on. So at this juncture, keeping to the time, we have an activity around the future of work. Okay? So because we've got people who are here present physically, and we also have people who are online, we have some homework for the people who are online that they are going to be given. And then the people who are here physically will be involved in another activity that will be about exploring the futures of work in the context of the transport manufacturing sector. So our video team is going to play a few videos for the, I think at most 30 minutes that we're going to be engaged with the future work game upstairs for the people who are here present physically. And those who are online, there are videos that we've prepared for you to have a look at around the work that is taking place in the context of the topics that are going to be discussed today. And what we want you to do, as you can see there on the panel discussion, we've got 3 questions that are set out. And for convenience of everybody, I'm going to read those questions out. And when we come back from that session, we'll have an opportunity for the 2 teams, the ones that are online, to express themselves on their thoughts around what they saw on the videos. And then those who are going to be here physically will have one representative just to summarize what they experienced and what their experiences imply for them for the future of transport manufacturing in this country and the future of work therein. So the questions are as follows. The first one is, what are the main obstacles to bring new technology and skills into South Africa, and how might these obstacles be addressed? So when you watch the videos, you need to think about these questions, and when we come back, then we will give you an opportunity to express yourself around that question. Secondly, how significant is the technology, skills, and entrepreneurial gap in South Africa in the transport and mobility manufacturing sector, and what has and can be done to address this gap, whether it's on the technology side or it's on the skill side. And this is why we're having the conversations here today. And also further, as the DVC has already spoken to the entrepreneurial aspect that is associated with our work, what are the things that we can do? And we'll hear from the experts when the discussions take off at 11:10. And then the last question is, to what extent does business work with tertiary education institutions to address these problems that have been spoken to above? And this is why we've got representatives of industry that are here with us. Gibela is here. We've got a board member from Gibela who will give us a view from that end with the work that they have been doing and the role that they foresee that this work the shape it can take and the role it can play in advancing, the work around ensuring that people are connected, because at the core of what we're solving here is disconnectedness and the spatial dispensation of people, especially those who are economically disenfranchised from the real places where the economic opportunities are at. So without connectedness, it means that the futures of these individuals are totally out, and the social compact that we long for is not going to be possible. So with that introduction, my watch is saying it's 10:20. So for the colleagues who are here, we've got 30 minutes to go upstairs. We'll be introduced to the future work activity that we're going to do. Then we'll come back around about 10:02. And then the guys online, our audio visual team is going to play some videos for you guys that you guys will have a look at and begin to answer those questions. And then maybe we can ask the audio visual team maybe to give 5 minutes at the end for the colleagues to precipitate their points to one individual who will then represent everybody. But for the rest of us who are here physically, we'll walk upstairs and also give a bit of activity to... your bags are safe in here. No one is going to arrive here and collect anything. So please be at liberty to leave your bags here. Our audiovisual team is going to be remaining in here, so please be comfortable to leave your bags behind. I will also leave my laptop here on top so that you can also see that I'm speaking to what I'm saying. Thank you very much. So we can go upstairs. Where do I switch it off? No, at the back.
So can we now fix the connection then?
But as the conversations continue the rest of the day, we'll find each other. But the point that I want to speak to with respect to that also is get in
And I think that's the way you get your experience, and that's the way you learn, because your quickest reaction is probably the most accurate way in which you would normally deal with it. But what we, I think, experienced first of all is that it's a very complex environment. There's no doubt that the world today forces teams to think very divergently about their future. So the experience we had, first of all, was I don't have enough money to do all the things I want to do. That's the first tension in the process. And then the second is really looking at the value proposition of each particular component you want to choose, and trying to decide what value that offers in the future world of work. So it's the tension of thinking about the future.
Can't hear you, man.
The speakers, the mic's not working. So, can I use this one? Yeah. And is that better?
Can you hear guys online?
Yes, we can hear now.
Okay. So the tensions you're dealing with, first of all, is that the future has so many diverse options. They're all very complicated on their own. They all are very deeply situated in success. And it's the choice boils down to how you prioritize all of these options. So each team working on each of the four functions of the organization didn't have enough money for all the things they wanted to do. So they had to go across to other teams and understand where are the duplications to make sure that they could choose an efficient option. And then strategically we were questioning, we started out by saying we'll put so much percent to technology and innovation, so much to leadership and future skills, and so much to sustainability and tradition, and from there we could actually start the conversation. But there's no doubt that you cannot lead this kind of decision as an autocratic leader. You have to involve everybody in this decision to make sure you have collective energy going forward. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, Helen, for those insights. You can see who was working under Helen. I'm certain, there's a paycheck increase coming up there. But let's hear Nontombi. Can you still hear us, colleagues online?
Very well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I don't know, is this the master?
Sit.
No, why? All right. I know today I'm thrown into leadership that was the first thing for me, because being selected, I mean, I think I was at a stage where I didn't think I'm ready for the task. And unfortunately, the powers that be said, you are the CEO, see to finish. So I think there's one part where just somebody knowing whether they are good for the job or not good for the job, and talking about the future jobs and skills, very important. But I think I agree with Helen as well. Also, at the beginning, I had to be an autocratic leader, so to speak. And the first thing that I had to do as an autocratic leader is to apportion the budget. We were told, this is the budget, and I said, each department, this is what I'm giving you. From the, who is that gentleman? The
Technology,
not the technology, the
leadership.
The leadership and strategy one. He wanted more budget. I said, no, I'm not going to give you. Strategically, in production, I'm going to put more money, and in social and others, I tried to make it equal. So I divided it 25, 25, 30, and 20. So that was the start, and I said, work with it. That's what you're given. Then I think secondly, it was a matter of then as a CEO going around and saying, then what do you think are your best strategies? After we had decided what kind of a company we are, what are we producing? And, you know, looking at the future. So strategically, we were very cognizant of what is it that we do as an organization, and what is the implication for the future. So when that was done, then it came to the part where we needed to go by these strategies now. And as a CEO, single-handedly, I went to each group and they convinced me of these strategies. And as soon as I gave one group the right to go and buy, and went to the next department, and I found that there were synergies, and I had to call them back and say, please come back, don't buy yet, because we might not be aligned. There might not be coherence in how we are then doing. And by the time the game was stopped, we were at the place where, as an organization, we're all sitting at the strategic plan and saying, for the strategies that are going to employ, are they aligned to the next strategy? And are we then talking the same language as you know, one organization? And unfortunately, like Doc says, we hadn't gotten into buying these strategies. But I think we're at the point where we were starting to agree. These are the strategies we need, and these are aligned in terms of, you know, what we want to do as an organization, in terms of our company, as employee satisfaction, in terms of our growth, and we were all in agreement. And for me, I think being a, collective thinking, and, you know, just involve everybody in the decision. You take them along because they become part of the decision. They know that they were instrumental in the decision making. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Ntombi, for that very frank, you know, expression of how you felt and how you experienced the game. And my understanding also is that the reality of the world in which we need to create this connectedness that we're trying to work around is like that, you know. There are things that suddenly you'll have to deal with that you're not prepared to deal with. And I think the pandemic. Is it me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me online? Hello?
Yes, very well.
Thank you.
Very well.
So the reality is that at the end of the day, there are circumstances that were not in the plan that we need to deal with. And even with this future transport manufacturing setup that we're going to be discussing today, this is why I thought the game was a fit platform for us to get the conversations going, and also get the brains thinking about other things differently. I mean, if you looked at the canvases, you could have seen there strategies that maybe are not necessarily in the places where we work currently. We don't do things that way, you know, flexible work hours or highly flexible work hours. Those things really don't happen. Even for us as academics, with the challenges of the pandemic, people found themselves working extraordinary long hours, and the flexibility that people who came to academics looking for, they realized that it was out of the window. And so the same applies with respect to this context of the future transport manufacturing work that we are discussing here today, the technologies that we need. What technologies do we really need? Should we go for hydrogen? Should we go for solar? What skills should we, prepare from our universities, whether it's at the high schools are here, at the high schools they're introducing new subjects, at the universities, at the technical vocational colleges, what curricula should we introduce so that our young people are able to participate in this space? So at this juncture, I don't know if there are any generic comments from the rest of the colleagues here seated, and then also online, if you can show by raising your hand, then we'll give you an opportunity to express yourself. I see there's a hand here. That's one hand. Is there another hand online that I may not be seeing? Skosana, you can please confirm so that we know the hands that we're going to be entertaining before we proceed to the next section. There are no hands online. So if something does come up to somebody online, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. But I'll give the opportunity to Roberto. Please proceed, Roberto.
Thank you, Kumbulani. Yeah. I wanted to thank my team, first of all, and the other team, and I find the game actually quite interesting in many respects, because it gives really a lot of food for thoughts on certain things. So the two CEOs said it very well. I just have a couple of comments. The gender dimension, because, for instance, you said that, and it was not your case, but you were put on the spot of being a CEO. But actually, when there is a gender dimension to take into account also, because our society, and specifically in working places, is not balanced. How are you training women to assume this kind of role? And very often, they have also to take this last-minute decision and take this responsibility. So I think the gender dimension in leadership, but also all across the line, is super interesting and important. The second point is the silo mentality that there are still in companies. We were divided in 4 departments. Of course, the 4 departments speak, but they're also antagonistic. I find interesting that our department was dealing actually with the skills and social aspects. And another department was innovation and technology. But innovation and technology still should go hand in hand. Why is that not under a same department, for instance? Or maybe if not, there should be a task force. And you see, because you can have, we discussed with the technology and innovation, and very often I see in reality you have engineers that are very keen in getting a certain technology, but then who's using this technology? You need the skills and you need the money, and you need to motivate the people and the workers to use these skills. That's just 2 observations, sorry.
Good.
Thank you, Roberto. I see Nwabisa's hand also went up. Tolani, is the hand online? No, okay. Nwabisa, you can proceed, and then we'll conclude with you in the interest of time.
Thank you, Professor. I think my comment is more on the strategies that we were given to think about. And most importantly, if I associate them with the future of the transport industry, I look at the 2 deciding factors, being the resources and also the budget. The issue is that the context, for instance, in this room, we are Africa versus Europe. Now, the interest of the context of the decision-making for Europe versus Africa are so different. And the fact that we have different environments, but the common objective to create a sustainable future for both Africa and Europe, it can only be that the decision is based on resources and money. Because at the end of the day, the interest, I always say that in any organization, there's a formal and informal organization. The informal organization is actually the one that drives the future, more than the formal organization that you must have strategy, you must have money, you must have this and that. So my interest is that I hope we do understand the spirit of the 2 countries that is actually stronger than the black and white that the countries have got in driving the future and the drive of the transport industry in those countries. I thank you.
Before we proceed here, Skosana. So this is why it was important for us to start off with the game. I hope now we understand why we had to do the game a bit. We didn't really get deep into it because the purpose was not to get deep into the game. The purpose was to sort of get this conversation naturally going, you know, getting there and talking about, oh, this strategy and that strategy, and we must do this, we must do that. But behind, we know that our conversation today is about skills. And each of those strategies, like you rightfully said, Roberto, if you really think about it, you can't talk, I mean, skills for what if there's no technology? So why do you need skills if there's no technology? So there is definitely a relationship. But the question then is, organizationally, normally what happens is that when you start off the game, everyone is very siloed, you know, we want to do this, we want to do that. Nontombi related to it, that they sort of decide, oh, we must come back together and check again. But that wasn't the idea. The idea is that in the first round, you just go silo, then you realize, you know what, silo doesn't work. Because some of the strategies you must implement in one canvas depend on the other canvas. So when you implement this side, and this side you haven't implemented, things won't work. You will see your metrics going down instead of going up because there's a disconnect. Okay? And so you can also buy intelligence in the game, and then that intelligence will inform you that, oh, these things are linked. So if you don't work with these things together, then you're going to lose out. So this is why it was important to engage on the game. But also, I think, just to say that the game is available. If you really think that this game must go to my home company or my home department at the government department or even at the EU, and we use it as a platform to have a conversation, you know, because that's what it's about, you know. But at this juncture, we need to move on. It's already after 11:10, and we've got a couple of questions that we need to address. I'm going to ask our colleague from Finland to please switch on their video, Prof. Pekka. I'm going to do the introductions, and I'm thinking that maybe I must start by introducing you before I introduce the other colleagues I am with here. Prof. Pekka, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay. So at this juncture, we're going to go into the next segment of our conversations this morning, which is going to be directly into the 3 questions that we spoke about. So how we're going to do it is we will ask a question, and each of the colleagues that are part of the panel will have an opportunity to respond to it, and then we'll open up to the floor to express themselves on the points. I must mention that my partner in this study that is being funded by the European Union is going to be taking notes, and we are going to utilize this to prepare a report. We have a draft report that has already been written based on the interviews that I had with some of you guys who are here present physically and some of the guys who are online. We've already gathered some data, but we want to, through these conversations, sort of gather more data to precipitate to a more higher quality report. So I hope we all understand that. But to introduce Prof. Pekka, I'm not seeing, is your video on, Prof. Pekka? Or you don't have the option of switching on your video?
Yes, it's on.
Okay. For some strange reason, I can't see it. Maybe it's a connectivity thing. So I will introduce Prof. Pekka. Prof. Pekka is a colleague who we have worked together in the past. We applied for a project with the Newton Fund, which is a UK program, and the project will show a video later on what the concept of the project was about, but it was also about connectedness, the importance of connectedness. And so Prof. Pekka contributed in that regard in terms of you know, the visual reality side, but he's got a lot of experience in designing cars and in designing modes of transport. So we felt that it's going to be a fantastic expert. Unfortunately, we made it to the last round of the project applications, but we didn't make it to the final project. So somebody else got the award. So the second best. In the world we live in, if you're second best, you're not good enough. You must always the first best, you know. So we'll get there. So Prof. Pekka is from the Metropolitan University Applied Sciences in Finland, and as mentioned earlier on, he is working in the Automotive and Mechanical Engineering Department faculty, and we're looking forward to him contributing. Then we have Nwabisa, who has spoken quite eloquently in terms of the differences with respect to our geography. She's sitting right here with us. You can show by waving so that the colleagues online can see who Nwabisa is. And she is serving, I think for me, the particular point of where she's serving in many places, but the particular point is that she's serving in the Gibela board. And with Gibela, we've got a very strong partnership that is going on. And obviously, the board is involved in the decisions that need to be made around supporting universities, putting some investment into university. And so we thought that it's only fair that she comes here and also expresses herself, the experience that she has had, and highlights, what role industry can play in facilitating skills development within higher education institutions, given the constrained fiscus that we find ourselves having to deal with. And then lastly, we've got Dr. Vusimalele. Dr. Vusimalele is from the Department of Science and Innovation. Currently is serving there as a deputy director for established researchers. So in the national innovation ecosystem, as a researcher, I'm regarded as an established researcher. So he also has a view, but from a different end. And this is why it was important that he comes here and he's also part of the conversation. And hopefully he can take some of the notes that he takes from here back to the Department of Science and also to their organs that they work with, like the National Research Foundation, to sort of say, this is what is coming out of the conversation. This is the willingness that is seemingly out there, so that they can also participate. Because the work that we're about here, as was rightfully mentioned by the Deputy Vice Chancellor earlier on, it takes a village to raise a child. And for our children to have the skills that are required for them to participate in the future in an effective way, we need to make sure that we are capacitating, from all angles. It's not just the state that knows the state's problem. They must sort out the skills problem. When the workers are ready, then we will employ them. Yes, that's true in a sense, but somewhere along the way we must work with each other to get where we need to get to. Because alone, we cannot go further than who would have gone. And then lastly, we've got Helen. Helen has been a very fantastic supporter of ours throughout the years. Actually, before we had the Gibela chair, we had a chair with Mesita, and that sort of built the foundation. And for me, I think the storyline there is the importance of the public sector maybe starting to invest in higher education, then other industry partners coming in and building up on the investment that already public service has already, initiated. But she will speak more about that when we give her the opportunity. So at this juncture, Prof. Pekka, in the interest of time, I want to hand over to you and request you to address the first question in the three questions that we are looking at today. What are the main obstacles to bring new technology and skills into South Africa, and how might these obstacles be addressed? Especially in light of the fact that, yes, you're not in South Africa, obviously you're in Finland, but you're involved in our development of the project with the United Kingdom. Maybe, before Professor Pekka speaks, for the sake of all the colleagues online and those here present, if the technical team can play the video. It's a 2-minute video just to give everybody a sense about what the project was about, so that there's context in terms of Prof. Pekka's understanding of the issues in terms of skills. So technical team, I don't know if you're ready for us. Is the technical team ready? So it's the video that is coming from Twitter. Maybe while you're getting ready for that, for us, Prof. Pekka, you can sort of give us a few words. Maybe there's specific things that you want to express about your CV that I didn't come across on. Prof. Pekka, over to you. So we are at the University of Technology, but we also do have bad network problems. and for me, it's a laughing point on one hand, but on the other hand, it's really an important point that we need to really speak about, It's good that we've decided. I was warned that, these things hybrid, it may not work, but I said, let's go for it. Because in the process, we see real time the issues that we need to deal with. Because when you keep putting our issues under the chair, and it all looks good, everything looks fine, and the issues are not before us. It's not helping us
Yeah.
because we're not dealing with the elephant in the room, which are the issues. I mean, if at higher education institutions we have these challenges with connectivity, what more at the village or at the high school or at the primary school? So as we have these conversations, it's good to experience these issues real time. And on the other hand, ask ourselves, what can we do to really resolve this? So that 5G. Are we good? Okay, so the video is ready. So Prof. Pekka, before you go, the video is going to go, then we'll come back to you. There's no sound. I'm not sure whether it's deliberate. The audio team is sorting it out, so please bear with us, colleagues online. Super. Some volume a bit will help.
I think online will hear, but
What motivates me
there we are.
is the fact that we do have big challenges in the African continent, and those challenges that we face are exacerbated by the challenge of people being able to get to where they need to get to when they need to get to on time. But as we solve this challenge, there's an opportunity to create enterprises that will help reduce inequality, poverty, and unemployment, which is a huge challenge that South Africa faces in particular, but the African continent in general.
We do know that the solution will have to be appropriate for the specific groups. And that's why we will go on and carry out a needs assessment to come up with appropriate technologies that also not only help us take technologies to the people, but also we should be able to empower the people that we'll be working with through co-creation. 10 years from now, we should be looking at an established hub and sustainably come up with these solutions.
We learned quite a lot around how to take our innovations to market, but also to begin to influence young people through leadership in innovation.
The Newton Fund impacts the very vulnerable people. It gets down to the very grassroots problems.
Design side, the manufacturing side, to train people around these ways of creating mobility opportunities.
So thank you very much, technical team. So this is the project that we're collaborating with Prof. Pekka. So at this juncture, I'm going to request Prof. Pekka to chip in and express the challenge that he saw as we're developing this project. Thank you very much. Prof. Pekka?
So before
Yes.
we start this slide,
Shall I
following transportation in South Africa. So
shall I give you a short answer? About the ski?
Automotive city radiate out from Rosneft, the most ideal location in southern Africa, complementing the existing automotive supply.
Sorry, Prof. Pekka, I think the
and
video is
distribution.
playing from the technical team. Can you just check with them why the video keeps playing? Can you hear us, Prof. Pekka? you are speaking, but we cannot hear you at this juncture, so I'm not sure.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
Okay, super. Please proceed.
I was. Yes, I was starting to talk about the development of the technical learning of the skills, and new things are coming every day. For example, connectiveness, sustainability, energy efficiency, and that kind of things, and many other also. But if we are looking at the situation from the eyes of the student, then the problem is that they have to learn those earlier things before they can understand current things. I mean, to get the good level of the skills, they have to study more and more every day. And I think that is the main in our education systems, also in South Africa, but also in Finland, because the size of the degree is regulated. BSc level is 240 credits and master degree is 300 credits, which means that it's about 6,000 to 8,000 work hours, and that we are adding things, adding new skills to the degrees, but we are not taking anything out of the degree, and that is the real problem, because for the students it's somehow, how can I explain it? It's very difficult to get those skills. But the main thing is that we observe this problem, and I problem, but I think that we can discuss about the solutions. It may be so that we can do something virtually, it is possible, or we can do something new environments for the learning and that kind of things. That is my thoughts about the first question.
Thank you very much, Prof. Pekka. I'm actually thinking that with the way that you've spoken, maybe it would be good that you just speak to all the questions. Because in a way, if I listen to you carefully, you're also already addressing the technology aspects, you're also already addressing some elements around what we need to do in a sense, in terms of are we just adding more onto the syllabus without necessarily taking out the old that is no longer necessary. And then it becomes more difficult for the students to really focus on the things that are important and move with the technological evolution, environmental evolution that is associated with the things that we want to disperse as skills to the students and capabilities. So maybe speak to the other two questions, and then I think that way it will also help us in terms of our quality of the feedback, and then we can then focus on the panel that is here. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes. The second question is very difficult for me because I have never been in South Africa, and for that reason it's very difficult to say what will be the biggest gap. But I think that the gap is about the same in whole world, and that is let's say so that I don't have any answer to that question, but I have one observation which I have made here in Finland and also in Europe, and I think that it is valid also in Africa and South Africa, and that is that the students' work life is changing also. I mean, at least in Europe, they have problems to find workplaces after the studies and during the studies, I mean the training places. And if they get some kind of workplace, then it will be only a temporary. And And that means that the students must adapt to this new normal situation. And I think that they have created it as a new value, new life value for their life. They are working 7 months, and after that they will keep holiday 5 months. And I think that this phenomena is now transferring to the work life and to the companies too. And let's say for the companies, this kind of temporary working might be harmful because you can't estimate the working people early enough. But it's also an opportunity. You can hire in employees for doing some special works. And I think that that will be a big change in the work life too. And then you had this third question about this tertiary education institution and how they will adapt to the system. And the problem is that those new skills, they are coming little by little, and many of them are coming, but it's very difficult to say what are the mainstreams that should be included to the curricula, and that is very difficult to estimate, and it's very hard to say a solution to that problem. And then also the studying methods are also changing all the time. I mean, at least our students, they are not reading papers very much anymore. They want to see videos, how to do it. And we have changed our education so that we are using more videos and that kind of things. But it's not only a question of videos, it's also a question of the whole teaching and education system and methods, because what I mean is that we have to change also the studying environments in our universities. I mean, you know, I have an idea. You know the library. If you want to learn something, you will walk into the library, borrow books, read magazines and that kind of things. It's very easy. But it's the way of our generation to do things. Young people, they need something else. They don't like reading and that kind of things. They will need new kind of libraries, and they are today's learning environments. And I think that those environments may be so that we have to offer places to learn things by hands and by doing, by testing and by constructing machines and looking at how they work. And I think that that will be the new solution of the learning. We have to somehow investigate the habits of the young people who are our students now, and they are professionals of the future. Yes, these are my thoughts about these questions.
Thank you very much.
I will be happy if you can comment my ideas. Are they valid at all?
Yes. So yes, Prof. Pekka, thank you. I guess the purpose of the conversation is for us to get a sense from a European perspective, obviously, which you have done very well. I was worried about the connectivity, but I think the message did come through. Can I get a sense from the room? I saw people smiling at the problems of people not wanting to read papers and wanting more to watch videos. It's a different way of learning, but it's the reality. And the question is, how are we utilizing the infrastructure we have to deliver content that speaks to these new ways of learning? And I guess on the other hand, the reason why we're set up here is sort of to deal with that in a sense. We've got a virtual reality lab that we're running here. I think it was also shown in the video that was played. And the reason why we're implementing virtual reality learning is because young people prefer more visual type of things, And we've had some young people coming through here, and you can see that even the game that we played upstairs, for those guys who are here physically, we've played that quite extensively with our guys who are exiting the B-Inch Tech, the final years. We've brought them here to participate in the game, think about companies, conceptualize companies, and participate in the game, and play around with ideas in a way. Obviously, there's an element of it being a bit fictitious, but on the other hand, there's real practical experience that they won't get anywhere else if they sat and maybe went to the library, as Prof. Peka said, that the idea of the library doesn't seem to be working. So at this juncture, I'm going to come to the panelists who are here in the room. We're not going to respond to you immediately, Prof. Peka, but I guess as the colleagues begin to speak, they will then sort of begin to address some of the issues that you have raised. So I'll go with the first question, and I'm going to start off at my extreme, right with Dr. Malele to speak to his thoughts around what are the obstacles to bring new technology. And I believe he's got training, basic training as an engineer, and he went on then to look at the entrepreneurial aspects. So he's got a nice spectrum of, from one hand, from the ICT perspective, and to the other hand, in terms of the entrepreneurial aspects, which is also really part of the conversations today. So if we can try and limit our comments to that one to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. But even if it's less, it's also okay, so that we allow the other colleagues to comment, and then we go into the next round of questions.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Obstacles. The first amongst the biggest obstacles that we have, one of the major one is technological literacy. I think as a country, we need to rethink our curriculum. We need to look at our curriculum and think of how can we embed technology from the onset. When kids are starting their school year, how can we embed technology? Because we are moving towards a technological era as we are. For example, schools are closed right now in South Africa, and then vast majority of our kids, they are still at home. Doing what? We need to ask ourselves such questions. And then what is it that we do as a quadruple helix kind of environment? What is government doing? What is industry doing? What are NGOs doing when schools are closed? Is there anything that we can create?
Can you please mute the other person online? The colleagues online, if you can please make sure all of you are muted, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please proceed, Dr. Kamelele.
The other thing that comes to my mind is, of course, the issues of funding will be in everybody's mouth, but I don't want to dwell in there. I want to dwell into the issue of infrastructure. We don't have, as you said, in rural areas, for example, some of the good brains are there, but we don't have them connected to maybe the urban areas. So infrastructure is one of the biggest obstacles that we do have and that we need to deal with. And generally, awareness. There are people who are having iPhones and those iPhones are only transceivers. You know, they don't know what to do with an iPhone except being a transceiver. Why then don't you buy a small Nokia? So it shows that we do have technology, but we don't have the technology literacy, or we don't have the awareness thereof. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Malele. Obstacles, Nwabisa. Obstacles. So Nwabisa, I think I must also mention that yes, she serves on the Kibela board, but she also has worked at Mercedes-Benz. So she comes to us with a lot of wealth of experience in terms of the transport sector. So we really are looking forward to hearing from you from an industry perspective and your experiences there, because the conversation really today is really about saying, these are the experiences that I have and these are the issues. And as we think about the future of work and the establishment of this institute here, TUT, maybe the EU and TUT can collaborate in this way.
Thank you, Prof. When it comes to the obstacles from the industry perspective, I would like to start by highlighting the South African context, because we are facing the era of moving from road to rail, meaning that we're trying to maximize the use of rail versus road. And in that context of the transport system of South Africa, we need to be always mindful of the environment that the industry is in. For instance, what type of technology is required to deliver this strategy from road to rail, in terms of freight and in terms of passenger transport? So you will see that, luckily, I've been involved in automotive industry. I started my career with VW and went on to Mercedes-Benz. And in that experience, I've realized that we are receivers of technology. And we are never involved at the core of development of this technology. Whether relevant to South Africa or not, we receive and we adapt. That is where I see the first critical point is that when a new technology comes in, whether automotive or rail, it has to be that the involvement. How can we be involved? Because the challenge now of just adapting to whatever that is available, you know, because we have the institutions such as TUT. Why are we not getting these kind of academic institutions that we have in the country that understand the context, deployed where the innovation triggers are? Because we do have the innovative ideas in the country. We do understand our environment we live in. And the technology, when it comes, it has to be situational. What you implement in Gauteng may not work in the Eastern Cape. So who knows better the environment of South Africa when it comes to the transport system? How do you adapt it then? And who are the right people to do the research? Who will understand what is the needs basis? Because the second obstacle is the fact that we do not understand what environment needs what technology. So at this point in time, we think the Gautrain could work in Limpopo. Is that what Limpopo needs in terms of the system for passengers? Is it the solution? Will the people in Limpopo, for instance, afford that type of technology in terms of the transport of the system of passengers? So when it comes to the needs analysis, the framework should be very clear that based on the context and the readiness and the needs basis, what is required where. When we deploy such research candidates to well-developed countries like Europe, we need to understand what is expected of them, not deploy them to receive what technologies are there. Get them to be involved in the failure mode effect analysis. That's where we can then give input on the design that we receive as a country. Lastly, we are very clear that within the investment of that technology, the one who's got the money is the one who's going to have the final word on what technology to bring. But let's change it. In as much as we may not have the investment, but we still buy these technologies as a country. Our government decides what projects to run, and those projects have got a technology involved, but we are not being part of the design of the solution that is required that we're going to pay for, which is where the problem is. I think the way forward would be we get involved on the product. If it's automotive, each product that comes to South Africa is for 5 years. So by the time we are celebrating the introduction of a new model in a car, we are too late as South Africans to want to be involved in that technology. We will receive it. But if the automotive industry has got delegates in the design of the new cars, that's 5 years or 7 years before that introduction of the model, then we are not just receivers, but we give our input and we give our creative ideas, the innovation from the ground, from the grassroots, from the environmental understanding and context. We can then close the gap. So it means that from a proactiveness approach than the reactiveness approach that we're sitting with. For me, I still think that it's a win-win situation. There's not one environment that's better than the other, but it is important that you bring the technology that serves the environment than the technology that the environment is to adapt to. That's my input.
Yeah. It calls for a moment of silence there. And see, you can hear the pin drop, but very valid points, and thank you very much for that wisdom. Obstacles, Helen, from your perspective, what are the obstacles?
Yes, thanks, Prof. I just love the last point of receivers of technology versus innovators. I think that's a very important distinction to make in our environment. But I must bring context to my comments. The organization that I've been working for the last 18 years is around using education and training and quality assuring education and training to bridge into the world of work. So we're an intermediary between education institutions, this is TVET colleges and universities, and the world of work. And the world of work are the companies who pay the skills levy from the manufacturing sector to the MERSETA. So what we do in identifying our challenges is look at where we're spending most of our effort. Most of our effort is spent on trying to find workplaces for students who are recently graduated for internships or for candidature on engineering programs, or for apprentices who've recently qualified to move into the world of work. Right now, and the pandemic has exacerbated it, the sector is shrinking. When I started at the CETA, we were sitting at around 22% of GDP was dedicated to manufacturing, and at the moment we're sitting at about between 11 and 12%. And I think that reversing that trend is one of our challenges, because we cannot find places of work to place these students. So what we've tried to do in addressing this challenge is saying what are the macro policies that we can adopt that allow us to disperse money in a way that serves the big picture. So we've chosen localization because it's an opportunity to expand the manufacturing sector. The more we can serve localization, and obviously future skills come into localization more and more. You can look at the solar photovoltaic sector, great opportunity. The OEMs in auto are, they have a target for localization, but there's a finite element to their localization. So we've tried to deal with this challenge by moving outside of just relying on existing workplaces and companies to serve localization. We're trying to find the innovation potential in universities to harvest the young talent that's being groomed in those universities. We've had some interesting experiences in this, which I'm happy to share the lessons from. But the biggest challenge is to really get young people into the world of work and to understand the rules of the game from that perspective. With an academic qualification on its own and without work experience, it's very difficult to get started. That's my contribution for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, I think what you're expressing also corroborates with what was mentioned earlier on by Pekka. Maybe these contractual arrangements that a lot of students are experiencing in the European Union also speaks to these issues of young people understanding the world of work. So employers are also now very cautious in terms of, getting them in and making sure that they are permanent immediately, but allowing them some space to demonstrate their capability, their fit into the environment, and then maybe formalizing, relationships going forward. But definitely those are obstacles of getting young people participating. The question of localization will be a question for another conversation. So I want to ask us maybe to park that for that conversation. There's a relationship in that regard. I do agree, and as also the game told us, when you look at technology is not on its own. There's a relationship with skills. Even if these things are compartmentalized, there's a relationship between them. And absolutely, localization has a relationship with the issue of skills. But for the sake of the conversations, we've sort of compartmentalized it. We can highlight where the things sort of interlink, but that is for another day. And in terms of the drop from 22% by 10% of the contribution of manufacturing to the GDP, I think those are serious issues. And for me, I hope that through the conversations that we're having here today, we can also get some insights looking at the fact that we've got a lot of people who are into trade and those type of things. And the Department of Trade and Industry is also well represented here. So hopefully they can also give us a sense of the initiatives that are being taken to sort of address that decline in the contribution to the GDP. So at this juncture, I want to go to the next question. We are seriously running behind time. So I'm going to request that our comments, maybe we comment on both the questions so that we have that round of comments, and then we will then open up to the floor for the phase of the question and answer or the comments from the floor section, so that we do keep to the scheduled time. So at this juncture, I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Malele. So how significant is the technology and skills and entrepreneurship gap? And I think this is a focus maybe of also the PhD work that you've done. So you are looking forward to the insights there of getting a sense of the significance, specifically looking at the transport sector and the mobility manufacturing sector. And then to what extent does business and tertiary education, from your view, from the Department of Science and Innovation, to what extent does the business come along and say, okay, universities, maybe you've developed this idea, this technology, it can go and be plugged in this context. Later on, hopefully, when we finish off, colleagues will be able to pass through and see some of the work that we've done here, technologies that students have developed. But the question is, are those technologies finding their way into being utilized in industry? Maybe that's another question for you to sort of comment on, with the investment that the Department of Science and Innovation is making into technology and development of technology locally through Technology Innovation Agency, the NRF, and the other various structures that are the implementing agencies. Over to you, Dr. Malele, on those two questions.
Thank you, Chair. The first question, how significant? Very, very. We need a transportation sector that is sustainable, smart, and have some resilient. But I have a question maybe to say how fast the smart part should be. From what I did on my PhD, this was my argument, and the biggest argument. I started with it. I said the curriculum is the biggest hindrance of everything that we want to achieve. Now, if the transport sector wants to achieve the smart part, that will simply mean we need to be smart in our curriculum. On my PhD, I said, if we want to produce entrepreneurs, we need to develop them from the ground. there's a paper that I wrote that was looking at Europe, America, and looking at China and South Africa, comparing all the innovators and the entrepreneurs. Then I realized that our African brothers, we start late. We start at the age of 29 to 35 to become entrepreneurs. And when you look at the companies that are there, the microphone that I'm using now, it's a Shure microphone. The intestine of this microphone, it's a microchip that was designed by a secondary student or learner. But for us, that learner should be at a third year, maybe B.Eng electronics to understand the inside. But if that kind of a student can learn how to do a transport or a Mercedes-Benz computer box from the early age, just to understand the schematic from matric, from grade 12, then as they grow up within the system, it's then easy for them to adapt, it's then easy for them to innovate. And in that case, as we are doing that, the ideas that they bring on, then they can be captured and be an opportunity for, entrepreneurship. Every institution in this country needs an innovation agent. As long as our institutions can adapt an open innovation strategy, we need innovation agents or business developers within each and every organization. And when I say so, I even say in government we need business developers, because some of the technology that comes on board can be generated by government. Maybe I'm talking from the Department of Science and Technology, and I see a lot of us having ideas on how we can develop tools that can even assist NGOs, that can even assist the community out there. The extent of business coming along, I can share this experience at the current moment. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been working with the French embassy as a department now. We've been working with them, looking at the different companies that are there with them, the French chamber. And then one of the biggest thing that we looked at was the cables. For example, there's a center of excellence in cables, and then the CETAs are on board on that. Then what we do was to say, how do we innovate the cabling industry in South Africa? There's nothing that is technological that doesn't have a cable. Even if we go wireless, your router still needs a cable. The motherboard of the router, it's also cable orientated. So that simply means there are technologies that are old but are very much significant for the future that we should not ignore. And those are also part of our opportunities in entrepreneurship. And those are things that we can also develop some few companies out of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So again, thank you for being efficient there on the time. The view that we want to understand here is how significant, Nwabisa, is this technology, skills, and entrepreneurship gap. But more importantly, how do you address it? I mean, I think Vusi, with respect to the cabling, we are grateful for the water. we definitely will not be like Cape Town, marching towards day zero. But I think it's also a sign that this conversation is very important. It's being cemented by the water. Something must grow out of this conversation with all this rain. So how significant? I mean, obviously, Vusi has expressed himself with respect to his view from a Department of Science and Innovation, which is the State Department. I must indicate that last week we invited to the Public Service National Indaba, and the Department of Science was clearly absent. Oh. But what interested me was that there's an innovation center within the Department of Public Service, which I found very interesting. On one hand, I've got my views around it, but so maybe it sort of speaks to what you're saying, that some of the innovations are present within, government departments, we just hope that arm also works very efficient and effectively. But from your industry base, your involvement with VW, like you've said, your involvement with Mercedes-Benz, what are the things that you're saying? I mean, you've expressed a bit earlier on when you say that most of the time what happens is that we get very excited when the car is launched here, but the work is already done 7 years back. It's too late. We're out of the game. We're not playing anymore. So how significant? I mean, you've expressed it a bit, but maybe you can sort of like dig into a bit of some detail. I must also express that over the weekend, it was my son's birthday. So we decided to take him to the zoo. He's 4 years old, so it's a good time for him to understand what an elephant looks like, and because when you travel overseas and you come from Africa, everyone is asking, how does the elephant look? And then you yourself are surprised. You only see it on the TV. So we said we are going to go there. But interestingly, when we got there, the national parks has begun implementing electric vehicles for you to drive around here in Pretoria. I welcome you to go there and see. So they've implemented electric. You charge the vehicle. It's got a battery. It runs around, and you can move around with it. And So I then said, well, it looks like this is a very interesting thing, because the TUT, we've developed the solar car, and what is the government doing to sort of link with the activities that are already happening from the grassroots with respect to this initiative? Because logically in my head, there's a husband and a wife there, there's a match. There's a possible match. Only to discover that unfortunately it looks like these vehicles are not coming from anywhere here locally. They are coming from very interesting places. I'm not going to mention names here. But I thought that those golf carts, I mean, they're driving at below 10 kilometers an hour. So, I mean, we've been building the Baja, for crying out loud, for years, and been winning the competition. Yeah. But how are we translating that Baja into vehicles that can? And then what was worse for me was that apparently there's also a contract for maintenance for 5 years. I mean, honestly, and we're crying about unemployment. But, so from an industry perspective, obviously, I've sort of zoomed this in and, highlighted some drama there. But I guess, like we said earlier on, it's good for us to put our problems before the table and deal with them head on so that we resolve them. Because the moment if we continue sweeping them under the chair, we're not helping ourselves. And we're not helping also our European partners who are so eager to support us by their presence here physically, but also online. So over to you, Nwabisa.
Thank you. I think when it comes to the gap in terms of skills, technology, and entrepreneurial skills that we may need, or entrepreneurs within the industry, I'll talk more first about automotive, because we are receivers, unfortunately. That's where it starts. So there must be a mechanism that will bring us to the level of understanding what's coming our way. It's the same in the rail industry. I mean, we've got Gibela. Gibela is also building trains from Alstom, which is a European company. So at the end of the day, we need to bring the rail industry forth to the technology that's being brought by the new blue trains that looks exactly like the How train, but for our people on the ground. The metro rail, it's replacing the yellow trains, becoming a blue train, quite modern, delivers the same comfort, safety as the How train. Even on the rail industry, you have to bring forth the skills level. But now this is the tool we are using in the industry, both automotive and rail. There's a model and a concept called transfer of technology. I have a problem with that word transfer for starters, because it means you are meant to be a receiver by, the virtue of that. When you transfer, the money is there, you just take it from point A to B. So it means the technology is there, it's just moved from Europe to South Africa. And when this happens, it's by on-the-job skills training. So there's no real involvement in terms of the startup of the technology, understanding what were the failure modes, how were they resolved, do they talk to the environment? Because sometimes we've got different temperature in South Africa than in Europe. The context of solving that could have been faced in a different context. But then the question is that when you do the transfer of technology, it's one way from the South African, skills development is that it's on the job. And there's an element of when the manufacturing starts in the country in South Africa. I mean, South Africans will be sent to Europe. They will have a look at how the assembly process, now we become assemblers. We are not innovative. We become the receivers and implementers of something that's already solid. Then there's an element of also transferring the skill from the knowledge base to our environment, because we build the factories. Automotive, there's factories all over in the country. Rail, our factory is in Danota. So even that side, there will be experts that are deployed from Europe to South Africa to transfer the assembly skill. That's where the problem starts. But I must then commend the role played by the research chair, because even though we've received the technology, as soon as we get problems, we bring those problems from the manufacturing perspective to the research chair and request the students in the research chair, especially for Gibela, to provide innovative ideas how to resolve them. Then they get to enhance their knowledge within that technology. But my concern is that this gap we've created by just accepting that we are receivers and just upskilling our people to understand the new technology, we need to change it. And when we change it, we can't be involved at the assembly point. We have to be involved in the design phase so that we can give input, not just by putting things together on the job, but by the virtue of giving our own ideas that will create the right product for South Africa as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe on the entrepreneurs, we need to also look at the technology from the country, how it can give input to the design of such trains, such cars for the country, instead of bringing it fully designed here. So if you need an engine, why don't we come and look for ideas of engines in South Africa that will feed into the design of the cars that we will adopt later on? So I think at the moment, the tool that we seem comfortable with is outsourcing something that is already designed. When you outsource it, you pick up an entrepreneur from within the companies, and then you give them a place to say, assemble it now, make your improvements and give inputs to the design, so that there's also an engineering change level to say, what are the failures? But you are feeding something that's already solid. So we need to be able to be involved in that aspect as well.
Fantastic. Helen, you can latch on right there. Thank you, Nwabis.
Yes, I can latch on right there. And I want to just go back to the challenge that I identified as finding workplaces. So what we need to do is use the actual period of learning to improve competence at a more efficient rate. So what we started in order to address this problem is we started a study. It was piloted in 2012. It was a 3-year large-scale competence diagnostic study between 2013 and 2016. But the interesting part of the study is we don't use the criteria for declaring competence in our normal qualification system. So remember, in your skills, you're competent or not competent, and you have to get through a final external summative assessment or a trade test to prove your competence. And that trade test is broken down into elements, And you have to show that you're competent in solving the problem of each element presented to you, whether you a mechatronics technician, whether you an electrician or a millwright or a boiler maker or a welder. This is how you prove your competence. The study looked at, it was a benchmarking study as well. So we had a group of students in Germany that we compared ourselves to. We had a group of students in China that we compared ourselves to. So we were able to look at this holistically in terms of what's happening in the world in the way competence develops during an occupational qualification. The outcome of this...
Sorry, I think there's a feedback. Is it okay? Sorry, Helen, please proceed.
The major outcome of this was that in the competence model, which is a scientific approach to measuring competence, we are ranked at a risk level in the competence achieved, even at the trade test level. So we have to try and work out how are we each year of the 4 years of study going to assure the development of competence holistically, so that by the time the candidate gets to the trade test, they have this element that you're looking for. Okay, because one of the dimensions that we measure is creativity. So when you're solving a problem, to what extent can you apply creativity? That's always the new knowledge. Professor Jay is sitting there. He's been part of developing some of the tasks that we use to test candidates. We've had very interesting debates around these tasks. But we've realized that the creativity is the weakest link. When a candidate qualifies, they don't know how to apply their knowledge to new situations and to bring new elements into their solution. Right, so that we know, we've tested it scientifically. And we then said, right, in terms of developing from this problem, we understand the curriculum elements, right, that you've raised already. But we want to work with the professional development of teachers and lecturers in the college sector. So we started investing in the national program for the professional development of teachers and lecturers, and that is now into its 3rd year. And candidates are now qualifying, advanced DIP, PG DIP, and the articulation route goes through to masters and PhD. And so lecturers can start professionalizing their approach to teaching and learning, which has never been the case. You've had to be qualified in an occupation to teach, but you didn't really have to have the pedagogical skills to do that. Right, so that's one way in which we're dealing with that. But the last element, which we felt was what needed some attention, was how could we understand the relationship between the final assessment, or the trade test, and competence development. So we changed the assessment approach in this study. And the assessment approach used the scientific model of understanding competence. And we found that if you just change the assessment approach, the rest starts falling into place. The backwash effect is major. And teachers can start understanding what you are aiming for in the final integrated summative. What is this holistic competence we're looking for that deals with your ability to embrace a future skill that you don't yet have? So from a skills level and occupational qualifications, that's the one solution we applied. Another solution we applied, and our colleague from DTIC was there, was we used a consortium approach with 3 universities, so 3 consortia. And the challenge was, it started in April 2020, to use the knowledge and the innovation capability of collaborating universities to find and encourage new innovations from students, new products, but not only for localization, which you said is, it's there. It's for new products. And this was a real eye-opener. It ran over 18 months. In the UCT consortium, we wanted to look at how we could expand the manufacturing footprint for medical devices. And the challenge was with the 3 university students at master's level signed up, there was 3 additional credentials or courses that these students had to do. So they were skills they didn't have in order to design, prototype, test, and certify a new medical component or medical device. And the results of that we will be publishing. It's a very interesting way of energizing the innovation capability at higher education, where you're not relying on the tech transfer, you're creating the technology solution based on your conditions for South Africa, for Africa. So the idea is manufacture for South Africa, for export into Africa. So I think I want to close by saying that all of the research we've done in this area has a very unique feature, which is a very important takeaway for this challenge that we have. Every single student, and if we compare it to China, if we compare it to European students, our students have incredibly high levels of motivation. Even if they know they're not doing well, they have high levels of motivation. They want to embrace the world. They want to succeed in what they choose. And this motivation, in a lot of instances, is being wasted because they qualify. They're highly motivated. They've got nowhere to put this energy after qualifying. I think that's the final thought that I wanted to leave with the discussion.
I must stand for this part. I want to thank the panelists. Maybe we need to give them another round of applause for the insights they've given. But I don't want to comment on their insights for now. I want to immediately move on to opening the floor to both our participants online as well as the participants here physically. So obviously there are things that made you sit up a bit when they were being spoken about. The purpose of these dialogues is to have frank conversations around the issues of the future of work, which the institute that the university has established is going to be about. So I really would like to hear from the floor. The guys who are online, please raise your hands. I think there are some issues that you've heard where you also think that maybe you've got some answers to those questions, and we'd really like to hear from you. I don't know if there are any hands online. Kolani? Okay. Welcome, Prof. Gochaman. It's good to see you. And we are looking forward to your contribution. Is it only Prof. Gochaman? Okay. So, Prof. Gochaman, you can introduce yourself and get on with the comments. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I had some problems with the internet connection before, but now I'm online again. So I'm professor at the University of Applied Sciences in Osnabrück, so Osnabrück University of Applied Sciences, and I'm teaching marketing and technology management that combines both the market perspective and the technology perspective. And I'm also working in South Africa since 30 years, so I know this country very well. I just want to combine 2 arguments given by Khumulani Mupofu and by Helen. Khumulani said that technology must not be for its own. It is related to, or it has a relationship to skills and students. Nevertheless, a very, very intensive relationship and a very important relationship from technology is to application. So you're developing technology not for its own, but for applications and applications in industry. And that we can combine with what Helen discussed. She said in one of her statements that students have to learn the world of work. They have to combine these two and say, let's learn the students inside of industry. And that's a model we are running in Germany. at some universities. It's called dual study programs or comprehensive study programs, where students are studying at university for some time and then changing to the companies as well, just to reflect what they have learned in the university and see how the solutions work in industry, and come back with questions from industry to the next semester and ask the professors. So this exchange between these both worlds is very, very, very successful running in Germany. And we just started 1.5 years ago a pilot project in South Africa at the Western Cape with Czech, the Cape Higher Education Consortium, just to implement elements of dual study programs also in South Africa. And we found the first industry partners to test these exchange, not to copy the German model, but to find which elements has to be adapted in South Africa. And it seems a very interesting approach, and they did a lot of research on it and defined a South African typical model for that. So this exchange we will try to enhance within the next years.
I really like it, when our colleagues from the north, when they speak, they present solutions to our challenges. And Prof. Kochaman, I thank you for that intervention. I think you, as you've rightfully mentioned, you've got decades and decades of experience here in South Africa. So you have a view of both worlds, and the intervention that you are coming across with. From where I'm seated, I agree 100% that application is very important. And this is why for us, the relationship with Gibela, because it gives us then an immediate platform to apply the knowledge and the technologies that we're working on. When we speak with them, we've got an annual workshop that is called the Gibela Research on Work Challenges. So it's clear that this is about work challenges. It's not theoretical, hypothetical, pontification. It's saying what are the problems, how are we dealing with them, and even as a professor here at the university, I then find myself in circles where we are saying there's a problem with maybe this kind of a technology, there's this industry partner who's disinterested. How do we find solutions? So when I formulate topics, that experience sort of then informs the types of topics that my students then begin to work on, because it's not out of curiosity only that topics are developed. It's out of real problems that speak to application. So thank you for that intervention. And I guess maybe we must also touch base in terms of what is happening in the Western Cape and how we can bring it to the industry hub of the country, Gauteng. Because definitely, if there's a model that is being tried out in the Western Cape, I think it's something that we can then replicate here in Gauteng, and Mesita is here, and we can find each other in terms of how we can, find that platform for us to take that forward, because it's an intervention that not only the Western Cape needs, but the entire country, and even our other marginalized provinces where, there are other industries that are taking off, but maybe, from their own end can also participate in that regard. The point was not that I preach, but the point was that, I just expressed excitement there on that point. Is there anyone else online, Kolani, before we come back here to, because it's easier to see the hands here on the floor, but we don't want to miss the guys online. There's another hand? Yes, there's a hand. Liani. Thomas Vuyani. If you can please introduce yourself, and then we'll give you an opportunity, but there's another hand here on the floor. Okay, so I'll start off this side, then I will come to Roberto. Please go for it. Vuyani, you can show your video, introduce yourself, and take us through.
Unfortunately, my device doesn't have a video, but my name is Vuyani Thomas, and I've started industrial engineering. Prof was one of my lectures. And without saying much, let me start by giving credit regarding the program that we have been through during industrial engineering course, whereby there was semester project where we had to meet cross-functional skilled or professionals and look for root causes of problems in the industry. So that I need to give credit to, because of today we are still using that kind of methodology to meet cross-functional professionals and try to look for root causes at different types of eyes. So we are talking about moving into a better way of communication or doing some lessons learned. But I need to go back to what we have been through and how we can improve it further. So those projects, semester projects, they really did a difference because of we were going to real industries and we looked for real root causes that were live at an industry during practical levels or semester projects that I wanted to give credit to. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that there are lecturers who are here who are involved in the undergraduate program. And definitely when I sit at the departmental committees for teaching and learning, I will transfer that information that, you know, there are things that were expressed here that we need from a teaching and learning perspective to go back to and revive or strengthen and enhance so that those experiences our students can then take when they go out there into the industry. Thank you for that kind comment, Vuyani. It's appreciated. I'll come here to the room. I think Nogulunga, you can introduce yourself and share your comment.
Thank you so much. I'm Nogulunga Lamini and currently researching about virtual reality as a tool that we're going to use for the scarcity of placement-based integrated learning. So my question mostly is on Dr. Mulala about curriculum development. If you can ask me now, I still remember like the life cycle of the butterfly, the egg, the pupa, the what, you know, the basic education, like who's developing our curriculum? Why aren't we, you know, integrating the right people to develop the curriculum based on what is happening in our industry, based on what's happening now, you know, and who are the people responsible? Because we're always discussing we need the curriculum to change, you know, adopt what is currently happening, who's developing them, and why are they not integrating the right people, the right skills, so that, you know, our children learn the basic things, how to design those flying cars, the elements that are needed there, you know, the design and the evaluation and everything. Yes, how are we going to sort this issue? We're always complaining about curriculum development, but we are not bringing the change. Who are the people responsible in the department, in the state? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nogulunga. Vusi, it looks like there are fingers pointing at you there, so I'm going to allow the fingers to point. It looks like there are more fingers coming up. Yes, Alliance?
Thank you very much. My name is Alliance Bibili. And yesterday I was actually looking at a video on LinkedIn from TEDx from Ken Robinson, who was actually asking, do schools kill creativity? Because I think I'll join what Mrs. Ellen has said, because we talk about entrepreneurship and skills, but I think the most element we should look at is how we develop creativity in students and not only have a type of assessment that kills or that not encourage the creativity in them. Because even the space where we are now is more about being creative. When we look at additive manufacturing, when we talk about the automotive industry, yes, we have components coming from outside, but how can we use additive manufacturing, for example, to create components that we can use and that can also be adaptable to the environment that we are in? That comes about creativity. So I think creativity is the keyword that can definitely improve in terms of entrepreneurship and creation of jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibili, for that comment. I think it's corroborating and building up on the aspect of creativity that was expressed earlier on by Helen. And a lot of people always ask me, why are you guys not on the Pretoria West campus, you know? Why do you have to come and sit here in Hatfield? This is UP's territory, you know? And from where I'm seated, the reason why we're here, it's about creativity, you know? If you walk through the space that we have on the other side, you see that we're trying to infuse an infrastructure that promotes creativity for our students. And it seems a bit expensive that we're doing this, but the creations I mean, the chair of council was here, and he said the next Elon Musk must come from here. You know, I mean, he came here for the first time, and when he was here, he said that the next Elon Musk must come from here. And through these conversations, you know, and interestingly, Elon Musk is a boy from Pretoria. so the irony there is very interesting. But how is it that we are not creating more of these types of in our young people with the state of unemployment that we have? So absolutely this element of creativity and how we can work with other partners, and this is why we are partnering with the European Union in this work with respect to the Institute of the Future of Work and the issues around future transport manufacturing, and how we can partner with others to raise this African child who's going to make a difference, not just in their own personal lives, but across the continent. There were hands here. Are there hands that have come up online? I see Roberto's hand, but Roberto has got a serious veto because he concludes the conversation. So I don't want to deprive the other members, because I would like him, when he speaks, then he can contribute to the conversation, but I also like him then to cement it at the closure of everything. Is there anyone, Skosana, online? Currently none. There's currently none online. And there's currently, oh, okay. Nontombi. Yes, would like to definitely hear from you. Yes, Nontombi, please proceed.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Should I stand? Oh, is it fine?
They can hear you.
Oh, they can hear me. Great.
Be comfortable.
So thanks for the opportunity. I think I want to just give in 2 comments that Vusi and somewhat Ellen talked about, where it comes to the access and curriculum. To say one of the things that we need to do better, and I think we're starting to do it, is to have an environment where we all understand what we have in the environment. For instance, when you were talking about issues of maybe in the rural areas or in some areas where technology or infrastructure is not there, you find that you have centers that are established by CEDA in terms of incubation in this particular, and they are very strategic about where the needs are at. But for your clients, for instance, they wouldn't know how to access that, that's one. But also even for the teachers in the environment, they wouldn't know, but they are there, that's one. So we also have a sort of shortfall somehow in terms of communicating amongst ourselves in terms of what we have established and what we've put into the environment that is effective. That's one. Secondly, though, in the also language of the curriculum development and how our universities are structured, that silo mentality still exists, because we still teach I'm not saying you shouldn't be teaching, organic chemistry. For instance, I did chemistry, I come from that, organic chemistry and physical chemistry. But you go to institutions where, what they call mode 2, mode 3 level of education is still viable, which is what you were referring to as this experiment with medical devices. It's one part, but imagine if we can, translate that to other sectors as well. Industry, advanced manufacturing and all these. That's what we need to do. And I think, Prof, at some point you said you'd want to hear from the DTIC that these are the things that we're trying to do, especially in automotives. We are starting to put in together, as for instance in Gqeberha, we are working together with Ford and other automotives there to then establish a center, a skills center that will then bring entrepreneurship, that will bring aspects of localization, that will bring aspects of supplier chain development. That's when now you come in with small companies starting to supply parts into these companies and then building up from there. And then lastly, Prof, is an issue of which Mem here talk about, of creating our own industries. I think it's very pertinent that we are very deliberate about the fact that these industries, we need to create an environment that is conducive for them. For example, the example that you were talking about of the zoo, when I look at it, for me, it's an issue of procurement. Procurement managers in South Africa, like a final product. They never go to an institution and say, you know, I'm thinking of a product that could do this, and I've seen it somewhere. Is there anybody that can do it? No, procurement officers will say, I want an electric vehicle that moves, and go and procure it. So we still don't have that culture where if any product is needed or any form of technological, you know, output is needed, you go to the people who develop it. So we need to inculcate that. But I think also let's be deliberate about creating these industries. That's how we are going to be able to win this job fight. Thank you.
Yes, there's definitely a job fight, and there's no question about that being won through creation of industries. And I guess the European Union as well, being here present today, there are interventions that they can work with us on, you know, because solving problems in South Africa is also solving problems for the continent. So there's the free trade continental agreement that is currently in place, and I know the European businesses are there in other countries, but from an automotive perspective, from a transport perspective, I think much interest is invested here in South Africa, and we need to find each other and say, how do we work with each other to, on one hand, balance the social compact here, while it's also balancing the interests of the Europeans, because the Europeans also have interests when they are coming here. And I think we also need to be frank about that and not be like, you know, it's only the local interests that we're interested in, because there are interests everywhere. You know, so how do we find each other around the interests? And that's business, you know, so that it makes business sense for everybody, and we can all move together forward rather than having an imbalanced way of moving forward. Are there any other hands online, Kolani? Are the colleagues happy? It looks like I want to draw a line, Roberto. You are going to give us our closing remarks.
And not
but
veto,
no.
I just had a couple of comments on this.
Yes. So what I just want to clarify that I know you've got closing remarks that you've prepared. You know, when you're thinking about this and conceptualizing and discussing with your other counselors, etc.
You're raising expectations.
But also, I mean, when you conceptualize the project, obviously there are things that you're thinking about, and you know, at this juncture, we're at phase 1 of what is unfolding, what is coming out. You know, so there's that part. So at this juncture, I'm giving you an opportunity to address the panel, as it were, before I give the panel the opportunity to then respond to some of the things that came directly to them. And then we will have a video just to tell people the story of what we're doing here. And then we'll give you the closing remarks after that video. So I just want to clarify that so that it's clear for you. Does that make sense?
It's perfectly clear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No, I wanted still to throw 2 elements in the debate, which is actually extremely interesting, and I will say that in the closing remarks. I'm really happy about some key takeaways that I learned also myself. Now, the 2 elements I wanted to throw here was the link between the business skill creation programs that are existing, and how much the vocational technical training and the tertiary educational system recognize in terms of diploma and of skills. And here I'm a bit talking of what I hear from EU businesses in Europe working in South Africa. Many of them are doing incubators program, they're doing skill development, they're doing internships and mentorships, etc. But one of the obstacles they face is that sometimes what they do is not recognized by the formal system in South Africa. So that means the student, the worker, the employer that has learned it, once he moves, is not recognized by the formal education system. Do you think this is a gap or not? And not necessarily of EU companies, also can be local companies and other foreign companies. That's one element. The second element is the link between skills and the black economic empowerment policies in place. And here, again, I'm not contesting or objecting the black economic empowerment objectives, not at all. But what happens when the EU businesses are participating in the system is that they would like very much sometimes that the skill development component and criteria is more rewarded than the ownership and management control part. And this is not to say that they don't want to give away management, etc. They don't, because a lot of SMEs, they are very reluctant to do, and that means that in practice, a lot of SMEs in Europe are innovators, and they're not coming here because they know that they would dilute their capital. But that's another thing. So they would still do that, but if the skill element, the enterprise and supplier development part is more rewarded, then they would do even more. And this is something that we have been trying to engage actually with the different stakeholders, but at this stage not with much success. I want you just to hear your frank and blunt opinion as we did today about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto. And I want to underline the issue of frankness. I think we do need to be frank because there are problems that we're trying to solve through these conversations. And if we're not frank, at the end of the day, we'll come here, see a few faces and then go away and nothing happens. But if we come here and we are frank and we speak from the heart, we will go somewhere. We can look back 10 years later, and people don't have to still say, we celebrate Mandela, look what Mandela did for us. They can say, you know what, there was Roberto in that room, there was Helen in that room, and look what came out of that conversation. And for me, the meaningfulness of our activities, even as the university, as university, people say, no, we are neutral and we can always facilitate conversations, but it never happens. So when it does happen, I think there must be a good story that comes out of these conversations to say, we had this conversation, we spoke about this issue, we raised this issue, and we found each other because we engaged frankly. And so I'm happy that you are expressing the frankness, and I know you're going to get the appropriate responses. So Helen, you want to respond to Roberto, or we must start with the question from the student before we come to Roberto?
I'll come to Roberto first.
You want to come to Roberto first, then to the student?
In fact, it deals with both.
Okay, proceed, please.
So the question is, again, the root is creativity. How do you understand it? How do you measure it? And if you're looking at the problem of small EU companies not wanting to invest because of the ownership requirements in black economic empowerment, how do you overcome that? It needs creativity that is fair with just cause. So we've recently had, and this is just something, we're creatively playing with at the moment. We've been developing a digital teaching and learning pathway for a new future skill. And what it does is it defines the quality assurance at each point, and it creates visibility around what achievements had been made, and we're building in our kinds of assessments. We directing the learning through self-directed approaches where a learner can go from this module to that module. It's their choice, but there are prerequisites. But having had this experience, we have to find a very quick solution to help community education colleges. Now, these colleges run short courses, but they also run second chance matric or le bac in France. We've realized that we need software as a solution, as a quick approach to helping a CET college produce white label online programs with qualified lecturers or teachers or experts, and students can come in to the course from anywhere. But there's one company that we found, a small 3-year-old company in South Africa. We didn't want to go to the American platforms and this. We wanted to use South Africanly developed for our conditions white label platform. So the young guys who came forward, I said to them, look, the first problem is you're all young, you're all white, you're all male. Okay, same problem that small companies have. I said, we've got to think of a solution that helps us still provide the solution, but build empowerment. So they went away. They applied their creativity and they looked at their IP and they said, if we manage our IP in this way, we can train, we can pair off each one of us with a graduates in the same space who can write the same coding, etc., to build them on how to run this. So by the time our contract is finished, you've got a fully empowered South African team to take over the work of repair, maintenance, and further development, and that will take 3 years. So here is, we're busy evaluating it at the moment. I have to leave the session in 5 minutes, just for 10 minutes to start up the evaluation process on this. But the question is, do we have an appetite to work in this way? Because there is a slow capital cost. There are still risks that we have to manage on the way. Obviously, you have to be incredibly involved to make it work. But it could be at the end of 3 years, we have a South African fully owned tech software as a service startup for educationally focused software. And the original owners confer IP just for those solutions. There's no license fee after that, and the young tech team can go and build their own business from that. So I kind of, that's what we talk about, what we mean when we talk about creativity. Creativity, the question is, how do you measure it? If you understand how you measure it, you can start building it into curriculum. So for instance, a curriculum would require you to be able to solve certain problems in your area that you've studied, whether it's chemistry or mechanical or electrical. And if you're looking for creativity, you have to teach it from the start that every solution you're ever going to face is not just the knowledge component or understanding how the process works. It's being able to introduce an innovative part to that solution which nobody else thought of. So that's how we measure it. We use it on a scale of 1 to 4, and we say, did they meet that criteria or not? Or maybe they did to some degree, or yes, they did. So as soon as you introduce it into assessment, there's an awareness amongst lecturers and curriculum developers to focus on making sure that it's an outcome at the end of a qualification. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Helen. You're excused for your evaluation process. And I want to also express that this aspect of creativity applies both ways. In the Northern Hemisphere, people need to be creative as they engage the continent and South Africa, We here in South Africa and the continent, as we engage the Europeans, need to be creative. It needs to be both ways, rather than a... Yeah. Helen, it looks like you're still with us. Can somebody please help Helen? So it seems that the challenge of starting helping people to think in creative ways is clearly something that we need to ask ourselves as higher education, how we are making sure it's happening, all the way even to basic education. I'm thinking now of the robotics courses that and the robotics competitions that we run with the high schools, all those are platforms for creative thinking to be inculcated and for people to work with problems that they wouldn't have generally worked with. But then how do we make sure that it continues throughout, and even at this point, when people need to make decisions across countries? Dr. Malele, or you want to go first, Nwabisa? Or we keep the best for the last?
I think ladies first.
Ladies first, okay. All right.
All right. From my side, I would like to give some input or comments when it comes to the business skills,
yes.
Development. I think from Roberto's side, we've spoken of incubator programs as well as the requirements of the BBBEE. So indeed, it is, a development of business skills when it comes to the incubator programs. Where I see a gap is the fact that it's an established product. Hence, I was saying from automotive and the rail industry, especially manufacturing, we use the tool of outsourcing because the solution there is to identify the part we want to outsource. As we outsource, we identify, in this case, black businesses that can learn how to build this already developed product. So we need to take it maybe 3 steps back to say, now that we've developed black businesses that are able to run proper business, how do we go further to say, should we have the next model of this product, how do they participate in the initial research, innovation, and commercialization of this product? It's good to start somewhere, having to understand how you build, having to run this business, having to deal with the product challenges and solve problems, but still we lack the involvement at the development phase of research, innovation, and commercialization of it, other than just the manufacturing element of it. So for me, I say we tick 1 box, but we've got 2 boxes we need to consider as the next steps.
Thank you, Navisa. Malele?
Yes, from my side, let me quickly maybe start with Roberto's comments. Moreover, under the issue of saying EU partners or business or SMEs, they find it sometimes difficult to come into the country with their innovation. One simple strategy there is, if you find it difficult to enter, get somebody who's inside and work with him. And make sure that what you have as an innovation, you share, but you take the IP and protect it yourself. Because there are businesses in this country that can assist a lot of SMEs from outside of this country to implement what they want to do. 2, on the issue of incubation, yes, I know about this issue of doing some incubation, doing some learnerships, but which are not recognized in the formal structure. One way of getting them recognized, in engineering we have CPDs. You can go that route to make them to be recognized. That continuous professional development can assist in that. And again, I think we need to begin to have that conversation of saying, what is the QCTO doing around that particular problem? How can we resolve it? Because we have partners in EU who are doing this kind of a work and they want that to be recognized. So we need to start beginning to open a conversation and a serious open conversation around these matters so that they can be taken through. It takes time for certain things to be, endorsed in this country. So because of the processes that we have. So I will also talk to the issue of, I think it's the larva that, will generate and become a butterfly, That on its own, it's motivation. I can use it in a motivational, when I motivate Gibela, for example, if they bring me as a motivational speaker. They can move faces, it teaches you about faces, but it's very important in biodiversity as well. So in particular fields, it's very important. Now, the curriculum of this country, for it to begin to take shape and change, it needs us to be involved. It needs involvement. There is a silo mentality that is still existing, that the university, let me maybe make this example. A first year student, I will talk about the engineering because I teach a lot of engineers. A first year engineering student who comes with a BSc, with a physical science from a high school, in most cases, they don't match the level of competence of a first year physics student. Let me tell you why. It's because they know about Ohm's law. They've memorized Ohm's law, but remove the resistor and put the capacitor. You see, I've just mentioned a resistor, and just ask about what is the purpose of a resistor and a capacitor in Ohm's law. you might not find a good answer for that. If you ask a simple question, 1 divided by 0, what is the answer? You'll find a lot of people telling you it's infinity, undefined. Now, there are certain basic things that are in our curriculum that we really need to fix. How do we fix them? I just mentioned that the schools are closed right now. The question is, what is the Department of Industrial Engineering doing about that? What is Gibela doing about that? What is the EU doing about that? What is the science and innovation doing about that? We spoke about, for example, the centers that are out there. There are a lot of centers that people don't know about. So the biggest problem that we have is sort of awareness of those curriculum developers, meeting with people from industry, meeting with people from government. Then we start chanting and begin to close the gap. Now, curriculum developers, they really need us to approach them. If you look at each and every university in this country and abroad, they all have what we call community engagement. Let's go to and interrogate that community engagement. You'll find that we are looking a lot on projects of the community, but we are not addressing that curriculum development issue. That's the reason we'll still have fragmented conversation. CETAs, for example, are some of the people that can assist us to close that gap. During my days, as an example, when schools are closed, we were forced to go to a farm and do agriculture. Right now, as I'm sitting here, I have 4.0 agricultural solutions that have created using the engineering background, but to solve the agriculture. That experience assisted me to be relevant in agriculture. So curriculum needs, for us to solve the curriculum, we need to be involved. We need to bring them and show them the visual learning factory. Teach them from there. Yes, indeed, our students these days, they are more of those who will watch a video to learn something. Then we need to adapt and change the way we teach them. Because most of them, they don't even read papers. They just read an abstract. If it doesn't go well with them, it's not something that they will take and read, regardless of the interest. That's the reason. If you look at each and every annual performance report or a report from industry, a report from everywhere, we produce so many reports. You know why are they not implemented? People, they just go to the executive summary. If they don't find it, they press find. If they don't find the key word they are looking for, they don't read it. And you might find that the keyword is there, but it's mentioned in another way, a synonym. It's right there. But because you don't know the synonym, you don't read. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, we have a lot of problems, but nevertheless, I guess we will get there. I'm looking at my time here, and I want to be very conscious of time. It is 1 o'clock. We had agreed that at 1 o'clock we would have heard from Roberto. So I must apologize there that we've eaten into your time by 2 minutes. We do not want to disregard everybody's schedule. But I had spoken about the video. I'm thinking that maybe we can play the video during after Roberto has spoken, so that we allow the colleagues who may be committed elsewhere to connect those commitments. But what I want to emphasize before, as Roberto maybe comes to the podium, I'm going to sit down, is that we have 2 other workshops in this series. Obviously, this one was the first one, and we've pivoted a bit on some things. There's a bit of improvements that we need to make. As industrial engineers, we do continuous improvement. So we'll definitely be applying those techniques so that our education shows creativity. And we demonstrate that. But the 2 workshops, these are the leading themes that are going to be discussed. The next one is going to be advancing localization and supplier development, Nwabisa, in the transport manufacturing sector. So I see yourself sitting there in the front seat of that conversation. And then the next one is going to be unraveling constraints to investment and technology transfer in the transport manufacturing sector. And I'm seeing from the comments that I've heard from our European colleagues, both Gocheman and Pekka, I'm seeing them also sitting there in the front seat. But all I'm saying with these words is as we precipitate to a closure of today, it's not the end of the road. There's still a series of workshops that are coming up, and the plan is that we still have them also in a hybrid format. We'll talk to Telkom and the other service providers to make sure that the fiber is really on point so that our colleagues international don't seem to be lagging. But I want to hand over at this juncture to Roberto. Thank you very much, Roberto.
Yeah, thank you, Kumbulani. And you anticipated actually what I wanted to say. A round of applause for Kumbulani that has moderated this debate so skillfully. A word for thanks for you and also for the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Tshwane Institute of Technology, with whom we are making this interesting journey. I was approached by Kumbulani and by the Chancellor, by the Vice Chancellor, I think it was 1.5 years ago, more or less, asking whether we wanted to partner with the Tshwane Institute of Technology in the future of work. Sorry? What did I say? Tshwane University of Technology. Thank you. TUT. That is the best way of going ahead. Whether we wanted to partner together to see which kind of journey we wanted to do. And we immediately actually said yes, because as you know, European companies in South Africa, they represent more or less 41% of foreign direct investments. And there is a huge contribution that is being made to transformation, to skills, to employment. But I also, and we all also reckon that much more can be done with goodwill on all sides in this respect. So I wanted, first of all, to thank the speakers and the panel. Thank you, Marisa. Thank Helen that has left us. Thank Wusi. I already called them by first name. And thank you also Professor Pekka from Finland that has been also intervening. I learned a lot. And I enjoyed a lot the discussion. And I think, not because I have to be the benchmark, I hope you're sharing the same feeling, but I think it was really a very interesting discussion that has highlighted a lot of interesting things. And amongst these things that I keep with me and I take home, I liked a lot what was said about being on the receiving end and being involved as from the beginning in the conceptualization of new technology and research and development. It is absolutely a key thing for every country that has a legitimate right to develop. And I fully am with you all there. I just wanted to say also that in this world, we are living in a globalized world, where actually the lead is not necessarily taken in Europe also. In Europe, we're also struggling actually to not be on the receiving end, but being more actually at the upfront of technological development. And as you know, a lot of things are happening, well, in the transatlantic, on the other side of the Atlantic, but are happening also in the Far East. And we are also facing a lot of similar challenges in Europe. This is not to say that your challenges are less important than ours at all, because I mean, you have the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty, which is of course keeping and dragging you down. And this is absolutely important to reckon. But in Europe, we have other type of challenges. This is not to justify that we are not doing what we can, but let's remember also we have 20% unemployment figures in some countries, and with the crisis this also has been going up. So a lot of challenges are common in the world, but the answer should not be work in isolation. The answer should be work more in partnership together to bring these challenges. And this is why skills and technology transfer are two key issues in economic growth, and specifically when it comes to advanced manufacturing. In Europe, we are walking the talk. We haven't reached yet the conclusion, and I wanted to share with you some figures, because for instance, we have estimated that between 2015 and 2025, opportunities will grow for highly skilled people, plus 21%, stagnate from medium skill levels, and decline for low-skilled people, minus 17%. It is clear that if we want to move forward with unemployment and advanced manufacturing and growth, we have to focus and bet more on highly skilled people and medium skilled levels, and we have to do more on this. And we also estimated that between 24 and 45% of jobs in Europe will be related to automation. So it's advanced manufacturing, transport, and automation are key actually in driving the fourth industrial revolution and economic growth in a country. So we are walking the journey in Europe, and we want to walk it together with you, South Africa, within the constraints that each of us has. But as I said, we have more than 1,200 companies working in South Africa as Europe. A lot of them are doing a lot, and I got what you said. We need to go a step further. I agree with that, but then we also need to reckon the step further that has been given. We need to incentivize. And Vusi, I also hear you when you say the best way to get an SME in Europe here is to partner with a local. I agree. And this is already happening, and it can happen even more. But if upfront you're telling this company that 51% of the ownership has to be given to the local, then they think twice. They are willing to partner, they want to do more, and maybe over time this will happen. But if you put that as a precondition for entry, they are discouraged and they are not coming. And I'm really here being the spokesman of a lot of SMEs in Europe that are very active in the new technologies that are so important for the green transition and the digital transition. These are technology developed by SMEs in Europe. And this very much, most of them are still family owned. And a family-owned company doesn't want to dilute capital from the beginning. They want to work with local partners, they want to do skill, they want to have enterprise supply development, but not give you away 51% of the ownership, at least at the beginning. Maybe later, according to how business goes. So having said that, I think we have a lot still to discuss. Kumbulani mentioned that we will walk the journey now with other two webinars. I'm very, not webinars, now fortunately is also physical meetings. So I'm very willing and interested in participating here. And just to say that also the EU wants to be with you in all this. We are not the only partners, and hopefully it's good to put the eggs in different baskets, but we feel a responsibility, and we have also our own interest. Let's put them all on a table, and then let's find a win-win that is satisfactory for everybody. Thank you very much. Back to you, Kumbulani. And I didn't express any veto, as you said.
So earlier on, when the DVC started off, she said it takes the village to raise a child. And I think from the comments that Roberto has expressed, he has summarized very well that the European Union is willing to come along with us. And for those of us who, you know, we call this continent home, and I hope that we're hearing that directly from him on behalf of all the European businesses that are here, and also the European Union at large. So we are looking forward to the next two conversations. I hope we are excited for the journey ahead. I'm going to ask them to play the video as people get something to eat and they can sit down. But also, I want to also extend an invitation for those who would like to walk through our facility. Please don't hesitate to approach any of my team members to give you an individual walk. If the team members can please stand up in case there are people who don't know who my team members are, so that you know who you can approach. There's no, please stand, and Alice, and there's Kosana there by the corner. And there's also Tsulu, the lady who was at the registration desk. She can also direct you to somebody who can show you around. But in the interest of keeping to our time, we want to allow people to have something to nibble on before we call it a day. But from our side, we are looking forward to you coming through for the next conversation. Thank you very much. We close here. Maybe for the speakers, it would be good if we can get like a group photo, you know, as well as yourself, Roberto, maybe some of your team members, so that we can have that for the record as well. Matthew, also, you're welcome. The camera team, I'm not sure who's going to be able to do that part of the photo. But the other guys, you're welcome to. And then the technical team, you can play the video while the guys are collecting food, and then maybe you can make it loop so that the people can come and sit here and watch if they are able to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm thinking if we can take the photo here, where the banners are, that should work.
Hi guys, welcome to another Living in SA TV video. David here once again. Today we are going to talk about the mega development behind the railway infrastructure in South Africa. So stay tuned because this video will blow your mind. Okay, so before we start this video, I just want to explain to you guys why I'm doing this video. You guys have been asking me about public transportation in South Africa, so let's do railways, okay? So don't forget to check this video also here on the top right corner so you can have a better idea, but let me tell you the story.
Tshwane Automotive City will radiate out from Roslyn, the most ideal location in southern Africa, complementing the existing automotive supply, manufacturing and distribution infrastructure, feeding directly into Rainbow Junction, Africa's future business gateway, strategically connected to the Capital Park Rail Hub, providing access to major ports and neighboring states. In the epicenter of the most sophisticated road network in Africa, positioned right next to Wonderboom National Airport, plugging into the existing SADC export infrastructure.
Okay, so this is where we're going to start. Can you guys see this rail network all over SA? This will cost 60 billion rand, which the government wants to actually invest until 2027. And again, I just want to show you guys the few steps that are being taken to accomplish this. Okay, so let's start with the story of why this happened, or the origin story. So Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, actually commuted in one of these trains and he experienced firsthand how it is to run on them. So delays, full of people, never meet time schedules. So it's kind of a problem, and you guys have to understand there haven't been any investment in the South African rail industry for the last 40 or 50 years. So Cyril thought to himself, you know what, let's do something about it. And knowing the businessman that he is, he spoke with LIVESTREAM, which is a French train company, to come to South Africa and you know what, let's start an industry here and produce trains locally, and let's create a business hub here and build trains to the rest of Africa. So that is what I want to show you guys now on the next video. Let's check their plant in Nigel. Okay, so this plant cost a total of 2 billion rand or $133 million. As a size of 78 soccer fields or 78 hectares, and they are the biggest train producing facility in Africa. They will have the capability of building 62 trains a year. Presently, they won a contract with Praza to basically renew the fleet of trains in South Africa, and the contract was basically in 10 years to produce 600 trains and costs $3.3 billion. How amazing is that? You guys also have to keep it in mind, in the next 20 years, 2.3 million people will be catching trains in South Africa annually. So that's a lot of people. And majority of the trains that we have in nowadays are from the 1950s, so they really need desperately to be changed. A funny, interesting curiosity is the fact that importing trains was not a very feasible option because the trains most likely will not fit into our railways. And why do I love this type of investments? Because they will bring more expertise to our country, brings education to our people, and brings a new industry that will bring more employment, more business, because everything is interconnected. In order to help Gibela to produce this, we need to produce locally, chips, stainless steel, subcomponents, everything. And that is amazing in order to take our country forward in one way or the other. Okay. So now we're going to check this video done by CNN, which is amazing. So stay tuned.
it's a fascinating industry. It changes, it's fast, it's complicated, and if you're going to do something with your life, why not try and make a difference like this?
South African railways have been neglected in recent years. But in this 78-hectare factory outside of Johannesburg lies the epicenter of the country's plans to rejuvenate them. Gibela is a rail consortium tasked with making 580 new trains, and its CEO is Hector Denisa.
It was clearly recognized by the government of South Africa that they needed to reinvest in rail. So it's really 40 years of no investment in rail particularly. And we are just one part of that revitalization, an important part.
The South African government has announced a $59 billion investment into rail infrastructure by 2027, nearly $65 million of which went on the construction of Gibela's Donator factory in Gauteng.
So the contract's 10 years to make 600 trains, 19 years to maintain them. We've made 24 trains at the moment. We are sitting on the 7th one.
One of Gibela's key partners is French train conglomerate Alstom. But the focus is on South African workforce and materials. The standard Gibela train is the Metro 3 kilovolt.
This is more like a copy and paste a train. Within Africa, I think it's one of the first trains in this nature. My basic role is to make sure that we adhere and we meet our contractual deliverables. So I will take you through the process of building a train. We actually receive rolls of raw material, which is stainless steel.
There's 145 tons of South African stainless steel per train. For each train car, the steel is folded, cut, punched, and welded into 4 different parts: the frame, sidewalls, roof, and ends of the train. They're brought together using a tool called the cathedral. Then comes the fitting and testing before it's handed over to the client and put to service. Each car is 21.5 meters long and weighs 20 tons. A typical train has 6 cars and contains 100 kilometers of cabling. In South Africa is only the start for Gibela.
It is the South African government strategy, and I think recognized via the African Union as well, that South Africa is going to be the rail hub of other African countries.
And these trains are amazing. They have better comfort, better lighting, better safety features, and aircon. I wish the best luck for Gibela to carry on doing an amazing job, and I hope our railways will look as European railways in a near future. But, there is another interesting thing that I want to tell you guys. The Gautrain expansion that is supposed to start in 2024, and I want to read you guys this. So, the first phase of the expansion, which is supposed to start in 2024, will see the network expand by 32 kilometers from Marlborough to Little Falls in Rudaport. It will also consist of 3 new stations and additional maintenance depot. Look at this. So this will be a total of 18 new stations. So the second phase will go to Soweto. Make sure you guys pause the video to see this better. And finally, these are the whole phases of the project. Okay, so phase 2 will see it expand into Soweto. When the expansion is complete, the network will stretch into Boksburg, Lanseria, Irene and Mamelodi. So keep it in mind that to build this, the taxes are going up in the next few years. So keep it in mind that public investment is on the way. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy another mega development video here in SA. And I see you in the next Living SA TV video.